Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to sift through stacks of sources and pull at the key insights for you.
Helping you get informed fast.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into a really significant piece from Politico. It's a column by Khardori, former federal prosecutor, titled 3 Scenarios That Explain the Epstein Debacle.
Right. Khardori's take is pretty pointed. He's basically arguing that the way the Justice Department handled the Epstein case, well, there aren't really any good explanations.
Yeah, that's the core mission for us today, unpacking that argument. The idea that the possibilities range from bad to, frankly, abysmal for everyone involved.
And it touches on bigger themes, too, like leadership credibility, especially when things get tough.
Definitely.
Right.
So the article lays out 3 distinct possibilities for what went down. Each one is, well, troubling. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the heart of the analysis really is these 3 scenarios. Khardori uses them as different ways to kind of frame the DOJ's actions, trying to make sense of it all.
Right. So let's unpack the first one. What's the initial possibility the article puts on the table?
Well, the first one is pretty stark. It suggests that top officials in the Trump administration, and Khardori names Trump, J.D. Vance, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, essentially exploited the whole tragedy.
Exploited how?
For personal gain, political or financial. The idea is they knew there wasn't some big government conspiracy or cover-up around Epstein's crimes or, his death.
Okay.
But they deliberately misled millions of Americans anyway. For years. Maybe to make money. Maybe to get Trump back into office. Maybe both.
Wow.
The article calls it shameful and inexcusable. Pretty strong language.
Incredibly strong. So that's possibility 1. Calculated deception. What's the second scenario? This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah, the second one is, well, it's the idea that the Justice Department's review did find something related to Trump. Maybe not a literal client list, but something.
Okay. Like references to him in the evidence.
Exactly. And that the government is now actively covering it up to protect the president.
And the article says this can't be ruled out.
Right, given Trump's past social ties to Epstein. And he has been mentioned in some court documents before, though, importantly, never accused of wrongdoing in this matter.
Gotcha.
What's fascinating, too, is how the article points to Trump's recent comments, that hyper-defensive attempt to turn the page, telling everyone to ignore conspiracy theories and move on.
Yeah, that seemed unusual for him.
Exactly. The author calls it a striking position for someone known for conspiracy theories and not really moving on from things.
Right.
So if this scenario is true, the article labels it potentially an unprecedented and historic political and legal scandal.
Okay, so scenario 1 is manipulation. Scenario 2 is a potential cover-up shielding the president. Big stuff. What's the third option, the one framed as less nefarious?
The third possibility is essentially that the administration was telling the truth. Well, their truth. That they genuinely believe the conspiracy theories they themselves have been pushing.
So they've bought their own hype.
Kind of. And now they're discovering there isn't an Epstein client list. No evidence of blackmail. And they're just as surprised as their supporters.
And struggling with the fallout now.
Exactly. Struggling to explain why the bombshells they hinted at aren't there.
Okay, so that does sound, as the article says, least nefarious. But even if that's the case, what does the author say about the actual behavior we've seen from officials?
Even in this best-case scenario, Khardori argues that what we've seen recently is still pretty disturbing.
How so?
He says top law enforcement officials, the AG, the FBI director, have been evasive, defensive, and intemperate. Not exactly reassuring.
Are there specific examples given?
Oh yeah, several. Pam Bondi, for instance, struggling to defend, saying that Epstein client list was basically sitting on my desk back in February on Fox News.
I remember that.
And then that whole thing with inviting social media influencers to the White House to wave around binders.
That mostly contained public info anyway.
Exactly. Plus, the article mentions her firing prosecutors possibly against civil service laws, telling tech companies they could ignore the TikTok ban. It's a pattern.
Okay, what about others? Kash Patel.
Patel gets called out too. He spent years spreading Epstein theories, and now suddenly he's all declarative and incurious, telling people those theories just aren't true and never have been.
Quite a turnaround.
Yeah. And then there's Dan Bongino, the FBI deputy director, apparently refusing to show up for work, sort of playing victim?
Instead of someone involved in creating the situation?
Right. And perhaps unsurprisingly, the article notes the DOJ didn't respond for comment.
So, across the board, even the least bad scenario, the leadership's response looks problematic. Why does the article frame this as such a massive blunder, though?
Two main reasons, according to Khardori. First, and this is key, it was entirely self-inflicted.
They made their own mess.
Precisely. Trump and his team fanned the flames, built up huge expectations among supporters about these bombshell revelations that were coming.
And the second reason?
The second is that the rollout of their findings, the conclusion of their inquiry, that was completely within their control. They decided how and when to announce it.
But they still seemed unprepared for the reaction.
Totally blindsided by the blowback, it seems, and still scrambling to contain it, so they created the hype, then botched the landing.
Yeah, it really puts it in perspective. A self-inflicted wound, badly managed. So, connecting this to the bigger picture, the article asks a pretty chilling question, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
What happens if there's a real crisis? One they didn't create themselves.
Like a terrorist attack or a major cyber attack?
Exactly. Those are the examples used. Situations where you absolutely need the Attorney General, the FBI director, to speak clearly, confidently, accurately.
Their credibility is paramount then.
It's everything. It affects how the country responds, public trust in the justice system, the works.
And the article's conclusion on that front.
It suggests, pretty bluntly, that based on this Epstein episode, there's a disturbing possibility that the current leadership team just doesn't have the skills or credibility needed for a major crisis, when it really matters most.
That's quite an indictment. So, given how badly this seems to have been handled, what should they have done, according to the article? How could this have played out differently?
Well, the most obvious path, Khardori suggests, would have been for Bondi or Patel, or maybe both, to just give a detailed public explanation.
Like a proper press conference.
Yeah. Lay out the investigation, the findings, and this is the crucial part, actually acknowledge that they'd made public statements that turned out to be seriously wrong.
Admit they messed up, basically.
Right, but the article suggests they were either unwilling or incapable of doing that.
And what about the argument that they couldn't release more info because of legal reasons, court seals and whatnot?
The article pushes back on that pretty hard. It critiques that terse, unsigned DOJ FBI memo saying things are sealed.
Saying not everything is sealed.
Exactly. And more importantly, since Epstein is deceased, the DOJ has a very obvious argument they could make to a judge to unseal material in the public interest. There's no defendant to prejudice anymore.
So the claim that their hands are tied legally
is hard to take seriously, the article argues, especially given this administration's track record on, sometimes disregarding laws passed by Congress.
Okay, so transparency was possible but wasn't pursued. What about fixes now? Are there proposed solutions being discussed, and what does the article think of them?
Yeah, it looks at a couple. First, the idea of floating among some supporters that maybe Pam Bondi should be replaced.
Swap out the AG. Would that help?
The article argues probably not politically. A new AG would just inherit the same questions, maybe even more pressure for disclosure. Doesn't really solve the underlying problem for Trump.
Okay, what else?
Steve Bannon's idea. Appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Epstein, the deep state, the whole thing.
Right, a special counsel. Does the article see merit in that?
Not really. It argues it makes little sense as a legal or political matter. Special counsels are usually for conflicts of interest involving the president or AG.
But Epstein's dead.
Exactly. No conflict there for Trump or Bondi. Plus, the article points out Trump's shown he'll fire special counsels he doesn't like anyway.
So Bondi herself could just investigate.
Khardori's point is that she's actually well positioned to do it. She wasn't part of the federal government before. No ties to the deep state she'd need to protect, other than perhaps Trump himself.
So a special counsel would just add bureaucracy.
Pretty much. Prolong the whole thing, give conspiracists more to chew on, string people along for potentially years.
And maybe that delays the point for someone like Bannon.
The article suggests that might not be an accident. It calls it a convenient short-term political escape hatch for Trump, lets him dodge tough questions from his own base.
So wrapping this all up, it seems like regardless of which of those three initial scenarios you lean towards.
Right. Whichever one you think is most plausible, the article's takeaway is pretty clear. There's no easy fix here, no quick way out.
And the author doubts the current leadership can actually calm this down with, a more credible explanation.
Yeah, seems doubtful. Suggests they might just try to weather the storm, basically. Hope it blows over.
And this whole thing was, as the article frames it, their first real public test in something like a crisis situation, even if they caused it themselves.
Exactly. And the conclusion is stark. It does not bode well for the future.
Which leaves us, and you the listener, with a pretty important question to think about.
It really does. In this environment with so much information, so much disinformation, and public trust being so fragile, how do you personally evaluate official statements, especially when a real emergency hits, something unforeseen, where you need clear, honest leadership?
Yeah, how do you tell the difference between legitimate concerns and, well, politically motivated noise when things get complicated like this Epstein situation?
Sure.
Something to definitely ponder.